Let's open the book on this. In Brooklyn, a jury has delivered a verdict in a brutal case. An 87-year-old parolee was found guilty of killing a woman in East New York and dismembering her. He now faces life in prison without parole. Hi, I'm Leah.
And I'm Garrett.
Welcome to Laid Back Local, the news of the day with Leah and Garrett in New York.
All right, let's kick things off with this. A Brooklyn jury has convicted Harvey Marcelin, age 87, for the murder and dismemberment of Susan Layden in an East New York apartment. Quick definition as we go. Parole means supervised release from prison before full sentence is served. Marcelin was on parole when this happened. Here are the key facts. Surveillance footage showed Susan Layden entering Marcelin's apartment back on February 27, 2022, and not leaving. Body parts were later recovered, and that evidence, combined with the video, formed the backbone of the case. The jury returned a guilty verdict this week, and Marcelin now faces life without the possibility of parole. Marcelin's criminal history is grim. In 1963, he was convicted of first-degree murder in Manhattan. He was later released, and in 1984, after being out on parole, he stabbed another woman to death. Despite that history, he was paroled again years later. This latest case, now concluded with a conviction, has drawn intense attention, including from true crime shows, because of the pattern and the brutality.
That's a thread worth pulling on. Why would someone with 2 prior murder convictions be paroled again? I mean, I get that parole boards look at time served and behavior in custody, but when the history is violent and the risk is high, that just feels like a system failure. Real talk, this case screams for a hard look at parole decisions for people with past killings.
Yeah, that hits different. Quick explainer on how this can happen. Parole boards weigh factors like the original sentence, in-prison conduct, age, and whether a person is considered an immediate danger. Over decades, laws and standards change, and sometimes the records or risk tools aren't perfect. That's not an excuse, just the reality of a system that can miss red flags. And this case shows exactly what's at stake when it does.
Let's not let this one slide by. The victim here, Susan Layden, deserves to be remembered at the center of this story. For policymakers, reviewing parole for repeat violent offenders feels like common sense. We can value rehabilitation and still put public safety first because both can be true. Okay, let's move on. Mayor Zoran Mamdani is ordering an investigation into Bellevue Hospital after a fatal incident on the subway in Chelsea. Here's the setup. A man named Ramel Burke was brought to Bellevue's psychiatric unit for acting erratically, then released. Hours later, he allegedly killed a man named Ross Falzone in a station in Chelsea. Bellevue is the city's flagship public hospital for complex cases, including psychiatric emergencies. A psychiatric evaluation is basically a check of someone's mental state and the immediate risk they pose to themselves or others. In this case, Burke was reportedly discharged about an hour after arrival, which is lightning fast for a meaningful assessment. The appropriateness of that discharge is now under investigation by NYC Health and Hospitals and the State Department of Health. The big question is whether the protocols worked as intended. Discharge decisions hinge on whether someone appears to be in imminent danger, which means a clear and immediate risk. If he didn't meet that threshold at the time, clinicians might have felt they had to release him. But given the tragic outcome, the system will now need to show how that call was made, minute by minute, and what checks were used. Mayor Mamdani campaigned on improving both public safety and mental health care. So this review could mean changes to discharge criteria, more observation time before release, or additional staffing for psychiatric emergencies. It's that balance again, civil liberties and treatment access on one side, community safety on the other.
I've got a why here. Why so fast on the discharge? If it really was about an hour, that's barely enough to triage, which is medical shorthand for sorting who needs urgent care first. Not gonna lie, it makes me think about staffing and workload, especially at a place like Bellevue that sees constant crises. If this review tightens evaluation windows and adds resources, that's a step in the right direction. At the same time, a reminder, many people in psychiatric distress are not violent. Most aren't. So reforms need to be precise, targeting the real gaps without creating barriers to care. That's a tough needle to thread, but it matters. All right, let's roll on. New York City is stepping up against Legionnaire's disease ahead of summer. The city has doubled its cooling tower inspectors and tripled the frequency of testing for Legionella bacteria. Cooling towers are those rooftop systems that help large buildings cool air by evaporating water. If they're not maintained, they can spread bacteria through tiny water droplets. This push follows last summer's outbreak in central Harlem. Officials traced that outbreak to cooling towers at Harlem Hospital and a city-run health lab. The numbers were serious. 118 people got sick, 92 were hospitalized, and 7 died. Investigators even made a genetic match, which means lab tests showed the bacteria in patients matched what was found in the towers. That's as definitive as it gets for source tracing. What's changing now? The city moved from quarterly to monthly water testing in cooling towers. That's a big jump. And they put $13 million into more inspectors, plus a community outreach team. Older adults and people with weakened immune systems are the most vulnerable to Legionnaires, which is a severe pneumonia caused by the Legionella bacteria. The goal is to catch problems fast before a small spike becomes an outbreak. Worth noting, short staffing caused by budget cuts was cited as a reason inspections lagged before last year's outbreak. Even with tougher rules, officials are clear. There's no absolute guarantee we'll avoid every outbreak, but this is a stronger net to catch issues early.
That's close to the heart of it. Proactive is the key word here. Monthly testing turns a flashlight on the problem. And I like that they're looking beyond just cooling towers to other plumbing systems that can harbor Legionella. Here's my why. Why didn't we do monthly all along? I get it, resources, but outbreaks are so costly in lives and dollars that the upfront investment seems worth it. Public health is a lot like instrument tuning, right? Small, regular adjustments keep the whole system in harmony. Miss them and you hear it quickly. Switching gears just a little. 2 New Jersey residents are being monitored after possible exposure to the Andes virus, a type of hantavirus linked to a cruise ship outbreak. The ship is called the MV Hondius. According to the World Health Organization, there were 8 cases and 3 deaths among international travelers confirmed May 2nd. A quick explainer. Hantaviruses usually spread to people from rodents. The Andes virus is unusual because it can spread person to person. Even so, health officials in New Jersey say the risk to the general public is low, and there are no cases reported in the state right now. The 2 residents are just under close observation for symptoms. The exact way Andes virus moves from person to person isn't fully understood. That's the science challenge. But we do know monitoring and quick isolation are key tools, and while it sounds scary, remember this virus is not common in the U.S. The headline here is vigilance, not panic.
Yeah, that checks out. My take, awareness without alarm. If you were on that ship or had close contact with a confirmed case, follow health guidance and watch for symptoms. For everyone else, normal life applies. Infectious disease work is all about smart containment, like drawing a small circle around the risk and shrinking it fast. On to the next thing. A scary moment on the Trans-Manhattan Expressway in Washington Heights, the stretch that links the George Washington Bridge to the Cross Bronx. A big chunk of material fell from the tunnel ceiling during the morning rush. A city worker named John Toledo caught it on his dash cam. His car was damaged, but there were no injuries. Officials from the Port Authority, which runs that section, are inspecting the tunnel. Early on, people thought it was concrete, but it was later identified as dust and lighter material. Still, falling debris over live lanes is a big red flag. This tunnel sits under the Bridge Apartments complex, so there's a lot riding overhead. Regular inspections and maintenance are what keep everything safe. Right now, the exact cause is under investigation. Composition, moisture, vibration from heavy traffic, even temperature swings can play a role in loosening material over time. The key question is whether this was a one-off or a sign of a deeper maintenance issue.
Let's get to the heart of it. Why did this happen? I know it's still under review, but incidents like this are a wake-up call for aging infrastructure. Tunnels and bridges don't fix themselves. Investment in inspections and in the crews to do the work is non-negotiable for public safety. The lucky break here is no one was hurt.
That wraps up today's edition of Laid Back Local, the news of the day with Leah and Garrett in New York. Have a great day and tune in tomorrow for more updates.